Welcome back to this episode of Harvey County Talk. I am your host, Lance Gormley.
And I'm your co-host, Sissy.
HC Talk is an HD podcast. Our guest on the program today is
Dale and Paula with Kansas Kairos Outside. How y'all doing today?
Good.
Doing great.
How's everybody doing on this fine hot day today?
Well, I'm pretty warm.
Yeah?
I could be a little cooler.
Yeah?
Better than yesterday. Grateful for the cloud cover.
Absolutely. It's always fun in Kansas in the latter part of July and August. We like to heat it up around here, don't we?
Oh, yeah.
Well, it's kind of interesting to have you both on the program today because, as most of the listeners know, we usually have a pretty cool clientele of people coming on, and we've always based this program on individuals that live in Harvey County or from Harvey County that either are doing great things here or great things abroad. And when I first had the opportunity to learn just a little bit about Kairos Outside Ministries, which I might admit, I want to learn more, and that's why we have you on the program, but also just the fact that, I wonder how many people, when you say Kairos Outside Ministries, know exactly what that means.
So Kairos Outside Ministries is a ministry that supports those who are incarcerated or have been infected by incarceration. And Kairos Outside is one of 3 programs in the ministry. It's inside, outside, and torch. Now, inside, of course, is inside the walls. Outside is for those outside the walls, and torch is for youthful offenders under the age of 25. But we're here to talk about Kairos Outside, which we minister to the female family members, loved ones, and friends of those that have someone on the inside.
Interesting. Okay,
Yeah.
so there's multiple things happening at once, but what you specifically do is just one of those ministries, one part of those ministries.
Yes, I serve in that particular program, the outside program, because several years ago I was and am a mom who had been impacted by incarceration, and I went on a retreat weekend, the first one that was held in Kansas, and it impacted me to the place where I wanted to continue to give what I had received to other women that are suffering in silence, alone, ashamed, hurting.
Yeah,
Wow.
no doubt.
Wow.
I also know of some folks that close relationships of impacted by incarceration, and both watching the incarcerated persons and their family members. It is quite an impact. So can you talk a little bit about just briefly about the inside and the torch?
And I want to hear this, Sissy, but Dale, Paula told us how she got involved with Kairos. I'm sitting here and I was waiting. I'm not trying to roughshod you, Sissy, but
Sure.
How'd you get involved, Dale?
Well, actually, it was through church. A friend of mine in church, she come up to me. She's been involved with it for several years prior to approaching me, and she just asked me if I might be interested and she went down a little spell of what it was all about and said that all you got to do is basically cook in the kitchen. I said, well, shoot, I can do that,
Yeah.
So anyway, I got involved back in 2007 is when I involved in it, and so I've been doing it 14 years now plus. So anyway, that's just, it was word of mouth of how I got
Opportunity to
involved with
serve.
it. Right.
Somebody just at church and said, hey, we need somebody to help serve in this ministry. Would you be interested? And
Yep.
and you, if it was well within your capacity, so you said, sure, sign me up.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, that tells us a lot about the kind of guy Dale is. I'll tell you that right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. For people, and I know this, there's always a need for people to serve, and just saying that, telling the story, somebody came right up to you and you were, almost looking for a way to, says a lot about a man.
Yeah, and we can get into it more here, but just to be on a weekend and just to interact with the guests that are on the weekend, it makes you just sit back and just reflect upon yourself of, just really, am I carrying the character of Christ in the manner in which I should be? And it's really, really important as we get into this to see how our impact of the men that's on team, the roles in which we play, how we have a direct impact on the women and their perspective of us, because they may have come from, the guest may have come from, an abused family all their lives. Their loved ones may have been abusive to them. You never know. So the way in which we treat them is pretty profound in how we can impact them and how they have a different perspective of not only us as men, but a different perspective upon themselves of saying, wow, I am worthy.
Yeah.
So it's pretty cool.
Amazing. And Paula, did you say how long ago you got involved? Dale said 14 years.
I was a guest on the first Kairos Outside Weekend that came into Kansas in 2005, and I've been serving in some capacity ever since. And one of the things I think is important to mention about Kairos is many, many people say they've never heard of us. And so we are so grateful that you've allowed us to come on and share, because Kairos is not a brick and mortar building. It's in a brick and mortar building. It's not that kind of ministry. It is our national headquarters is in Florida, and there's 11 paid employees, but there's over 35,000 volunteers. Currently, there are we serve in 39 states and 11 countries, so it's an international ministry. It's huge, but as Dale's already said, it's super, super important to be able to be heard and to let people know that we're out there. And it is one person at a time.
Yeah. And Sissy, you had a good question. I mean, I'm interested. You were asking Paula about, like, there's multiple different ministries in one, right? So...
Yeah, when she started introducing Kairos to us, she mentioned that there was 3 prongs to the ministry: outside, which is what you and Dale are here to discuss, but also inside and torch. And I know briefly you said inside was inside the facilities, inside the prisons, and that torch was for youthful offenders.
Correct.
If you just, either one of you just briefly give a little bit more detail on both the inside and what torch is.
Well, I can attest to the Kairos inside, because I've actually served a couple of times on the inside over at Hutchison facility. So,
and is that behind the walls, or is that minimum security, or what is that?
No, it's maximum security.
Okay, so you're going into the belly of the beast there.
Yeah,
to minister to some people.
You're definitely in there with them. So it's an experience, but it's an eye opener. It's just, it gives you an opportunity to quite honestly, you either connect with the guys or you don't. It's just, it gives you an opportunity to see into those people, and you'll pick it up pretty quick of who's putting on. It's just, how
who's there for the food.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
Right.
Yeah. So anyway, but it's the same structured in a way. We actually, on the inside, we start on Thursday night, so it goes Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Okay. So it's longer because it takes so much time to move everything in, to get everything set up and whatnot. And you are in there, for not the whole duration of it, obviously, but it's just totally different. But anyway, it's powerful, because you think, let's put it this way. The first time that I went in, I kind of had the attitude that, well, I got this together. I know what I'm good. I know how I'm going to deliver this. I know what I need to do, because there's a series of talks that are done throughout the weekend and everything. And I actually get in there and I find out, as the weekend goes on, and I'm seeing that, oh my gosh, these guys are ministering to me, because
awesome.
These guys are in there and they may study 24/7, some of these guys of the word.
Yeah.
So some of these guys are rock solid that want to, go in the program. But what the warden does is they try and find the hardest of the hardest incarcerated guys in there and go through the program. So anyway.
If I could just interject something to piggyback off of what you said. The vision of the ministry to go into maximum security and minister to those guys is oftentimes those guys have huge influence in prison politics. So as Kairos goes in and those guys begin to turn and their hearts are changed, their minds begin to change, they then go back out into the prison and begin to turn others. And the wardens want Kairos in the prison facilities. They welcome Kairos. So that's really, really important.
Well, when you say that, it almost makes me just the initial thing is that, well, something must be working. I mean, they're not telling you not to come back. One, problems associated with that. Two, and then maybe last that if they're in favor of it, obviously they've seen, they're an intimate relationship with these inmates, whether they want to be or not, and these incarcerated individuals who've made choices to be there, and that's just kind of the relationship. But just to know that there's that kind of support for what's happening is speaks volumes.
Well, Lance, what's been shown, the warden keeps track of everybody that goes through the program, through the Kairos program on the inside. So what they found out is that guys that have gone through it, they're less likely to be frequent flyers back in there, if you want to put it that way.
Yeah, reoffend or,
Right.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
that says a lot.
Yeah. Yeah, because ultimately that's the whole plan, right? To heal people and send them on their way.
So the reason for the 3 programs of the ministry is to bring healing and restoration to the family. What happens is the ideal situation is the person on the inside, quote unquote, sponsors the female family member, loved one, or friend, gives the paperwork through the proper channels. She's contacted. She goes through an outside weekend. They've gone through an inside weekend, or the young men have gone through the Torch program. And so what happens is now, through very broken families and very broken relationships, everybody is kind of going down the same lane. And at least they have that common ground to begin to build again.
Okay. So if I'm looking at it from a perspective, and I'm not going to sum it up, but to this point, what I hear you saying is that this is a program of volunteers, really heavy volunteers, that go into people's lives who predominantly, obviously, are affected through incarceration. And there's an avenue to minister to those who have offended. There's an avenue to ministry to the loved ones of those. And then together, it's kind of like, I don't know, a counseling maybe that gets to take place at that point with all parties involved. Is that similar? I mean, it's not counseling because you're ministering to people, but...
Well, the 2 programs that they've gone through, both the inside and the outside programs, are very, very similar. The same things happen in the programs on the weekends so that they have common ground to be able to talk about things, because the person on the inside has gone through the same thing and the person on the outside. So it spurs a lot of growth, forgiveness, choices. Those are some of the things that are talked about on the weekends. A lot of the ladies that come to us, they're broken. They have felt rejected. They are under a heavy blanket of shame because they don't want anyone in their community to find out. They don't want their employer to find out that they have someone incarcerated. They don't want their neighbors to know. So what do? They feel rejected, they isolate, and there is no one to help them walk through it. That's what we want to do, is come alongside of them, journey with them. Even after the retreat weekend, which is wonderful, we have, if you want to call it aftercare, we travel then with them on the journey of life. Because in my particular situation, my children were released years ago. They have come out, they give back to society, they're married, they have children, they're employed, they're doing very well. Not everybody has a happy ending. Not everyone has a happy ending. There are ladies that we have come through our program that their loved one will never be released. So we have prayer and share groups. We have reunions. We stay connected to them. We have communication. And so we journey with them through the process, no matter what it is. And our motto for Kairos Outside is listen, listen, love, love. We don't judge them. We don't ask them personal questions. When they come to the weekend, we have we have table families that are established, and they share what they want to. They are never forced to share anything. But what we want to do is, as a Christian ministry, faith-based ministry, we ask them, even if they're not Christians, they don't have to be Christian to come, but we ask them, just listen to our perspective for the weekend. Just be willing to stay for the whole thing. And so many, many times they say, I was out of here on Friday night, but I'm so glad that I stayed. So it is working. And but it is important because we do walk the journey with them, even after it's not just a euphoric experience and then we don't see them again. We stay in touch.
Can I ask you guys both, like, just to dig deep? And I mean, Dale, give me one of the most impactful experiences that you've had since endeavoring to first start cooking in the back, for a weekend to go. I mean, I'm telling you, I don't know anybody that has ever walked up into a prison before, but it is intimidating by anybody's imagination. And it really is a dark place. And, to have the courage as a person that just does it. I mean, you got to have a goodie in there for me. I mean, I've give me one. I want to hear one that just was like, wow, this was impactful.
Well, the thing is, Lance, I can't summarize it down to one, but it's as I'm just going to kind of summarize just what we do as men on the weekend. We're not there just to cook. We're there to feed them spiritually and obviously physically, is what it really boils down to. But we pray throughout the whole weekend for not just the guest, but we pray for the team members, because as I mentioned earlier, there's a whole series of talks that goes on throughout the whole weekend. So we pray the ladies that give the talks on our team, we pray them up and then we pray them down. And anyway, that probably, I would say, the most important role for us as men being there on a weekend is to simply be an extension of God's love and just to serve them the way in which they would love to be served. Because I mentioned earlier, they may come from an abusive relationship or abusive family. So we may be the only time that they see God's love coming through a man. And, I can't narrow this down to just one time, but I will say that I've had women tell me multiple times. On Saturday, we do a special event, which I can't really get into because it may spoil the opportunity for somebody that wants to participate on a weekend. But we do a special deal for the women on Saturday night. And during this time, I have heard over and over a gal that will grab my arm and she'll just start bawling. And she'll look at me and she'll say, I have never felt this loved or this kind of love in all of my life. So as men on team, we know that we're being used by God to give the women a sense of worthiness, like I said, and there's really not a single word or a single thing that I can sum up that just describes the impact that we can have on them. A weekend does take a lot of work. It takes a lot out of you, but when you see the tears and you hear the testimonies of the guests, it's also worth it.
Well, I think you answered my question just
yeah.
full-fledged right there,
Yeah.
Dale. I mean, wow. Yeah, Paula.
Yes. I think for me, seeing those ladies have renewed hope. There have been so many that have just basically walked away from their family members, and I understand that. I did not, but I understand, you don't wake up one morning and say, I'm going to get arrested today and I'm going to prison. There are sometimes years of habitual behaviors that lead up to, and as a parent, I can say that I saw those things happening, did all that I knew how to do, but couldn't turn that. And that was not hopeless, but very close. And I've seen women that didn't have the friends that I had and the support that my husband and I had during that time. They have no one. A lot of them are single moms with kids that have been wayward, made a bad choice, went to prison. They have no one. And so to see their renewed hope at the end of the weekend, and to know that they are going to go home and make different choices, and as Dale said, feel differently about themselves, is just awesome. We have people that stay with them. We call them contacts for the guests. They stay with them closely for 6 months after the weekend. So we are right there if they need us. We have to be sensitive that we don't hover, but we are right there. And that renewed hope, I believe, that I see happen. They come in like a rosebud, a tight little rosebud, and by the end of the weekend, they have bloomed. I mean, literally bloomed. So that renewed hope, I know I've said it 3 times, but that renewed hope is key, key. I did want to share too, Lance, we didn't talk about this, but if a female who has been incarcerated herself, but she wasn't in maximum status, she would not have had an opportunity, chances are, to go through an inside program. So she can apply to come to an outside program. And oftentimes we have ladies that have done that. So we're there for them as well.
Very cool. Yeah. That's an excellent resource, because some of those gals that come out, they need that follow-up for 6 months or more. So that's great.
Mm-hmm. So, okay, this is obviously a huge undertaking, like Dale said. I mean, you guys kind of brushed over, but I mean, I could only imagine what it would take to plan this, to make sure that this happens for all these people, that it happens on time. There's got to be so many hands involved in this. This is faith-based, as you said, correct? I guess my next question is, well, how does this happen? I mean, this can't just be one church that just decided this was their ministry and went for that. So, I mean, is there like a grouping? I mean, kind of tell me how all of this shapes up. I mean, it's got to be multiple churches, multiple different communities that are all coming together to make this happen, surely.
This ministry is ecumenical, which means that any faith that is Christ-centered, they're welcome to come and serve. And we come together and we have team training so that we can lay our forms of worship aside and lay our own perceptions of things aside. We learn about the program. We, again, train. We go through a series of talks and meditations that we give on the weekend, and we practice and give those during the meetings. I mean, it's like we need that time to become united and to be able to operate in the love of God rather than our maybe self-centered, self-seeking motives, which as humans we all have. And we lay those aside and we prepare and pray for the guests.
Okay.
And how does someone become a volunteer for Kairos?
There is a website that we have that is KS Kairos, KAIROS.org/outside. And you can go to our website, and there are all the forms that you can download and print to fill out. And there is a P.O. box that you can mail it to in Hayesville. And then you'll be contacted by the leadership. One thing that I really do enjoy about serving in this ministry is because we are not a brick and mortar ministry. There's still very, very strong leadership in place. We have what we call an advisory council that oversees the outside program, another one for the inside, another one for Torch. And as advisory council, which I'm currently serving on, we are responsible to make sure that we follow the guidelines of the ministry. We have a manual that we follow, and so we're not just out there flying if I could say by the seat of our pants. That's
exactly what I was going to say anyway.
There's definite oversight, and I enjoy that because it's solid.
Yeah.
And it happens the same way every time.
Yeah.
There's no retheming, there's no rewriting. It's the same thing every time because it works. Yeah.
Yeah, and like once again, as far as especially going inside, there's some major checks and balances that you probably had to jump through to do that, I would think.
Yeah, it's you kind of hit it right on the head there. It's it's kind of a hit and miss deal sometimes, and then obviously we had this COVID stuff that we went through and everything, so that really made things difficult. And we're actually just getting back into the inside for the first time back in October coming up here. So that's going to be the first time back in. So that's huge. But it's been a long wait to get back in there. So
now I talked to a lady the other day, and she told me that she's about my age, and she told me that no one knew, but she had heard us share at a church, and she said no one knows this. But she had a particular situation where she had a child that had been incarcerated, and they've since passed. And all she said was, with tears flowing down her cheeks, "Thank you for your story. Thank you for sharing this." I encouraged her that if she'd like to go on a weekend, that even though that her child had passed, that she could do that. And she declined. I said, and that's okay. That's okay. So it's also not just prison; it's municipal jails too. Any type of incarceration.
Yeah, right. Made choices that put you at odds with the law and then separated you from your family, or put them through the kind of trauma that people experience with that experience.
So I wanted to bring that out too. That it's not just people that have someone in prison; it's any kind of incarceration at all. So
and. Just as I was listening to both of you speak about these things and how these programs work in the ministry and kind of the ongoing facilitating that you're doing for the whole family restoration, it's a person-centered ministry. Even though you have, that's what I'm understanding, correct me if I'm wrong here, but you have inside for men.
And women.
And women, because we do have a facility in Topeka in this state, right? I often forget about that. I'm sure that they don't appreciate being forgotten about. But so inside is you go into the facilities. And then outside is extended family.
Correct.
Loved ones. Mostly female at this point. I don't think there's any outside
There's
male.
nothing for male right now.
Right. Okay. And then the torch is for the youthful offenders, children of these families
male.
and things like that. But all male. It really sounds to me, and Lance, I'm sure you picked up on this already, sounds to me like this is a person-centered ministry. But the idea is to get to the root of what has broken the relationships within the families.
Correct.
And
even if it's just between a husband and a wife, or a mom and son, or a father-daughter type of a situation, or maybe someone has been adopted and they have become estranged from everyone, both birth parents and adoptive parents,
and Sissy like too. That. I when we were talking with Paula and Dale, they sent me some pretty interesting things, some statistics I'd like to throw out here.
Sure.
There's over 6.5 million people who have an immediate family member who is currently incarcerated. That's 1 out of every 38 people. Or that 1 in 5 adults have had a parent who's been incarcerated. 1 in 5.
Wow.
1 in 5, a parent. Then, even more sobering to me was that 1 in every 8 adults has walked through the experience of their own child being incarcerated. I mean, that's a tremendous amount of people. I mean, people making decisions that lead them into a legal path, right, wrong, or indifferent, and the state of who they are in that moment, right? It affects so many people, down to the people in your community, but most importantly, their family. And I want to say this. I know this. Statistically, individuals who are incarcerated, when they get out, if they're in a family unit that supports them, then their likelihood to not reoffend is very, very good.
Yep.
So by ministering to these families who are people incarcerated, it does give them a pretty good opportunity to hopefully, if that's employed, be able to have a family that surrounds them and they're kind of on the same, at least have a game plan now. And it's Christ-centered. So, I mean, can you get any better than that?
Right.
Really?
And the other component, which we don't have resources for, other than if it was an individual that we would know. I do know in Newton there's a couple of employers that do employ those that have been released, that have been formerly incarcerated. And that's another component of success, is not only the family, but employment. So if someone is an employer or business owner that's listening, they need opportunity also for someone to come alongside and journey with them and give them an opportunity to be able to find employment and be able to feel worth that they can come out and provide for their family. Because if they can't, they're going to boomerang back into the old patterns of whatever they did. And unfortunately, a lot of it is drugs.
Going to wind you up in the same place you were before.
Drugs.
Right.
And
Yep.
and if
Yep.
or maybe theft or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so this is huge. I mean, it touches a lot of points. There's a lot of facets to this ministry. There's a lot of facets to just having a viable, productive community to be able to live in. And that's what we want to see, is that those that have come out, the families are restored. That's going to, the feelers are going to go through the community. And when I mentioned before of my children, you know, and how they had come home and started their own lives again and have not reoffended and have been successful, that's huge, because we want our community to feel safe.
Yeah.
And so we want to do our part to help that along.
Well,
And
I'm sorry.
building those relationships and just knowing, hey, people feel like I'm worth something. These people care about me. You know, they've become my friends. I have so many friends through this ministry that I would have never known had I not been involved with Kairos ministry. Never. Well, I didn't know Dale before Kairos ministry.
And he's such a good guy.
I
He
know.
is, and he's
Dale
such a,
is a rock star.
I
by the
agree.
way.
and he's such
Totally
a good,
awesome.
and he's such a good cook.
Right?
He helps,
Yeah.
he helps
I
with-
love it.
Okay, that's
You're
enough for
awesome.
me.
Yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
I love
but
it.
he
No,
helps
you're-
cook at our fundraisers
Yeah,
too.
yeah.
So that is exciting.
And not only that, I mean,
That's exciting.
just the fact that, and you talk about fundraisers, obviously there's ways that you need to, you know, get money. And I know we had mentioned that we were going to make sure and cover on the program that there are a few. So what are some opportunities that people have? I know there's one coming up soon. So to be able to just support this ministry.
On September 15th, which is Friday evening, we're going to have a soup supper dessert auction fundraiser at Newton Christian Church. We will start at 6 o'clock and we'll have fun until it's over. And we're pretty excited about it because we do raise all of our own funds. We go share at churches, we share at businesses if they'll allow us to do so. We've done some grant
Okay.
things. That's brand new. We're just learning how to do that. And I've had some friends that I've come to love in Kairos that through their work, they have said, hey, let me teach you how to do that. Because I'd say, you know what, I don't know how to do that. So, as Dale said, we bless one another. We help one another.
Yeah.
We become a big family. It's a huge community, and we help one another that way. So we have donations from churches. We have donations from individuals. We don't have any government funding, and that's fine.
Yeah.
So that's how we do it. $1 at a time, I guess I should
$1 at a
say.
time.
Oh, you mentioned weekends. How many weekends a year weekend retreats does the outside do?
2, spring and fall. We have one coming up September 8 through 10 at Webster Conference Center in Salina, Kansas. And we're still taking reservations for guests because we're not full. We have space available. So, and then the one in the spring, don't have the date for that one yet. But
Great. And with the inside kicking back up, you said, will that be 2 times a year as well?
Yeah, it is. They do it twice a year as well.
Awesome.
And Lance, I'll just throw out something there, just so you guys, those that listen, they've got, just so you've got an idea of what it costs to do one of these weekends. On average now, it's costing us about approximately $7,000
$7,000 to $8,000.
Wow.
$7,000 to $8,000 to do a weekend.
Just to minister to people. You're
Yep.
talking like possibly $14,000 a year then.
Oh yeah.
Minimum.
If you're doing 2.
Minimum.
Yep.
Wow.
It's probably around 20 is closer. 18 to 20,000.
And of course, the person that signs up, it doesn't cost them a penny.
Not a bit.
No, everything that we do,
Just love and
we
minister.
raise the money so we can keep everything free to our guests. When you have ladies come in that have been infected by incarceration, many times it's their husbands. When that happens, that takes one of the incomes out of the home, and it is a tough situation.
Okay.
Tough.
I don't know. Is there so if there's a individual woman with children right now that's thinking, man, I need to go to this weekend. Can they still try to say, hey, I might need some help with my kids? I mean, is there anything like that or anything? I mean,
We have done that before, and we try to meet those needs as much as we can. So that, again, the council
Okay.
has to approve those
Okay.
special situations, but and there's a certain way that we do that. But yes, and transportation. If someone doesn't have transportation, so we can supply that, get them back and forth to the weekend. So there's just hardly any needs that we can't meet.
yeah,
you
to
know.
make sure somebody gets there for that
Right.
for that weekend.
Right.
Yeah. I'm sure there's a lot of, especially like the scenario you just said. There's a lot of hats that have to be worn by the young or older woman in that situation. So
And if people have special physical needs, we can usually accommodate that. And one thing that hasn't been said is the guests must be at least 20 years of age before
Okay.
they come on a weekend. That's an
Okay.
important piece of information.
Okay,
'Cause
definitely.
that's all on the website. All of that information is on the website.
Yeah, well, with all the people who are infected through incarceration, I would say that's a pretty broad category of people. Okay, so I know, we're getting close to the end, but I just have some eating on me, and I know that you have both expressed kind of, different scenarios and situations and how this has affected you, and you've been able to affect other people's lives. But if I'm just somebody that's listening to the program and I'm listening to all this, and I may not be somebody who's ever experienced incarceration or anything like that, and I'm asking, like, why would you people do this? I don't understand. Tell me why.
Well, the reason that I do it is because I want to give back. Remember, I was a guest on the first weekend, and I experienced just some awesome unconditional love and acceptance of Christ. I was amazed at all the people that jumped in and put the weekend together and didn't know any of us. And we hear the ladies say that, Why are you doing this for me? You don't even know me. So I want to continue to give back. And if I can be very blunt, you ask me, Lance, I'll tell you. When I serve in this ministry, that keeps me out of myself. It really does. Because all of us, I think, but I've got to speak for me, can get tunnel vision in my everyday life, and it can even get to the place of, well, what about me? What about me? And just somebody pulling out in front of me in traffic can set me off at times. You know, I think we're all that way. But because if you think about it, when we serve in this ministry, our team formation starts in July for the September weekend. So, you know, this helps me stay out of myself. And so I need that just as much as everyone else does. I need that community. Yeah. I need that acceptance. I need that worthiness. I need that love, you know, as well as giving it. I need it as well.
Dale.
Well, you know, I would have to say, when I look back before I became a Christian, I quite honestly can say that I was probably one of those that was not the kindest to some women myself. Not abusive in terms physically, but I just didn't really say a lot of nice things and that I could have said or whatever. So this just gives me an opportunity to look at these women, knowing what they may have, where they may be walking, what they may have walked through, and gives me the opportunity to give back to them what I may have stole from somebody else. So it's, you know, just like I said before, it's just about sharing Christ's love. I know, you know, the Lord loves me unconditional, and that's what I'm supposed to do to everyone. So I'm there to just serve them and to love on them unconditional. I don't care where they walked or what they're going through.
Right.
And it just gives them a new sense, as Paula's mentioned it and I mentioned it before, it gives them a new sense of hope, and gives them a worthiness, and gives them a different perspective to walk away from the weekend to hold their head up and know, hey, I'm not the same person that I thought I was. So, and we know, I can speak for Paula because we've both seen this over and over and over, that these weekends work. As for the outside, the women on the outside, when we do those weekends, a lot of the guests end up coming back and serving on the weekends, you know, with us as team members, because they were so deeply impacted by it. And guys on the inside, when they're actually released, they get outside the walls, same thing. They serve on a men's outside or a men's inside, or they even come and help out with the women because, like I just said, you know, they were in a situation where they were the abusive ones and they ended up going to prison for it. So now they've got the opportunity to treat the women right.
Treat somebody different.
So,
wow. It's a full cycle kind of thing.
Yep.
All right, we're wrapping up here. We got to do it as always. We give the guests the last word. So each of you get just a few seconds to speak directly to the hearts and minds of anybody listening. What do you have for us? What do you have for us?
Well, I would say that if you have heard this and you know someone or you yourself have been impacted by incarceration, I encourage you to contact us, because it is so important to be able to be restored. And that renewed hope.
Well, I need somebody to come help me cook.
I love it.
No, I mean, I do always. I'm always looking for somebody to help me out cook, because it's hard to get guys, you know, because men are so busy all the time. And anyway, I think I just wrap it up by just saying, if you want an opportunity to be a reflection of a real man through Christ, come and serve on a weekend. It'll just blow the women away.
Yeah. Awesome.
Call
Well, thank
us.
you.
Call us.
Thank you both for coming on the program today.
You're so
We
welcome.
really
You're
appreciate
welcome.
you.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Well, there you have it, folks, and thanks for listening to this episode of Harvey Canning Talk. I was your host, Lance Gormley.
And I was your co-host, Sissy.
Enjoy your week, everybody.